If I could have everyone take their seats, please. I am delighted to welcome you to the 40th anniversary of Communication Studies at UCLA. The PowerPoint you just watched in the lobby was created by one of our alumni, Sandy Rand, and gives a sense of what the world was like in 1974 when this department was founded. Before we begin our panel, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what Comm Studies is like today, for those of you who are visiting for the first time in a while. First of all, I want to assure you that we continue to have some of the most outstanding faculty on the UCLA campus, people doing field-leading research, and we continue to have among the very best teachers on this campus. The faculty are teaching a curriculum that is very similar to when you were here, with some notable changes. The curriculum now has 2 new fields to help address changes in the communication environment. We now require a core requirement in new media to help address the changes in technology and communication that are, I think, evident every time you look at children or the internet. Don't do that. Okay. And political and legal communication, which is, again, a very influential area in society. We have also decided to require our students to do what we call a practicum requirement. The practicum requirement has the students in the major be able to apply what they've learned in their theoretical classes in a communication context where they are attempting to, say, persuade or affect people's thinking. An example of this is in my course on political communication. Students in the class are required to do commercials for fictitious presidential campaigns between, in the most recent case, between Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Patty Murray of Washington. This is an example of one of the 30-second commercials my students did. Again, they did all the research. They're required to use certain footage I provided, and this is a resulting ad. I should warn you, by the way, if you have delicate sensibilities, some people are killed in this ad, literally. I'm actually not kidding. So, there you go. Hopefully that'll play.
The problem is as this war has drug on, they take that authorization of use of force to mean pretty much anything.
I will not vote to send my son, your son, or anyone's daughter to war unless a compelling American interest is present. Make the wise decision here and avoid an unnecessary war.
And just to even things up, here's a negative ad another group did about Rand Paul. This one is a little funnier. So,
I will speak until I can no longer speak.
And Paul lifted big sections of that speech about Gattaca right from the Wikipedia entry.
Due to the frequent screenings, Vincent faces genetic discrimination and prejudice. The only way he can achieve his dream of being an astronaut is he has to become what's called a borrowed ladder.
What does the fuck say? What the fuck say?
So I'm very proud of that ad. and the students in my courses and all the students in communication studies. We have the very best students on this, well, among the very best students on this campus. It is an exceptionally sought after major. We routinely turn away 1,000 students per year that want to get in the major. We implemented a new admissions process this past year to help make those decisions as equitable and as well-based as possible. Students now have an incentive to take more challenging classes before they end the major instead of padding their GPA, which I think is a perverse incentive we've had. We now require the students to do a creative work in 6 different essays that we read before we admit them. And we also allow students to make their case in person in some cases before a very distinguished panel of alumni and faculty, including some of the people in the audience today. We tried this last year and couldn't be happier with the results and plan to continue this in the future. And speaking of the future and outstanding students, one of the things we're working on now with the help of Dean Sandra Durante, who is right there modestly in the 4th row. You should be up here. This is a whole seat right there for you. Anyway, so for a new PhD program in communication, this program will help increase our nationwide impact on the field of communication, help steer the future of the discipline, and also help our students have better trained TAs for their classes and interact with the undergraduates. And we're very excited by that and think we'll be able to attract some outstanding students for that program, in part because of, again, the faculty that we have and the research that they're doing. We have cutting-edge research taking place in research labs that just blow my mind every time I see the research that's coming out of them. Those of you who graduated in the last decade have probably made a trip to the basement of Bunch, among other places, to see the advanced physiological measures and other things that we are able to do with our state-of-the-art research facility there that Greg Bryant and Carrie Johnson run and Neil Malamuth. We also have, frankly, one of the most outstanding mass media resources in the entire world here in our Communication Studies Archive. The Communication Studies Archive was started by Paul Rosenthal, who is in the front row, is also one of the founders. Founders of Communication Studies here at UCLA, but also of the multiple choice exam that I can look on some people's faces and see the excitement in some of you when I mention that term. Since 2006, Francis Steen, who is sitting, where are you, Francis? Back there, has converted the collection of this system to digital, and we now have about 250,000 different television programs in the collection and more than 1 billion words of television news indexed and searchable by our students. It's an amazing resource. We're currently mounting an effort to preserve the videotaped analog material that Paul recorded, again, since the Watergate hearings until 2006. It's another basically 200,000+ programs that we would like to have digitally available and indexable by the students. We have, in the short term, also been digitizing a subset of the collection, which is speakers on campus in the 1960s and 70s, recorded by Communication Studies in the prior speech department. We've put these things up on YouTube, and they've been very popular. On the website, we have over 250 speeches and other videos up there now. And in fact, Derek Boland, who's taking photos in the lobby, has been putting the material up, and we've had, I think, last time I looked, 200,000 minutes of viewing. So I don't want to convert that to hours, it's less impressive. But it still is, I think, something we can be pleased with. And speaking of alumni contributions, this was funded by alumni contributions, as is a new program that we have called Partnership UCLA. We've created Partnership UCLA to help us engage with our alumni and with members of the community and help our students in their professional development. Thanks to a very generous gift from Richard Ross, who is a friend of our department. In July 2013, we launched our involvement in Partnership UCLA. In January, we had 25 senior executives from various communication industries interview and select the 2014 class of college fellows in communication. These students will benefit from alumni mentorships. We'll also be able to have access to summer internships in extremely competitive firms and competitive companies. And also, through this program, we've been able to directly support our educational mission by having hands-on training or other guest lectures in our courses, building on the expertise of our alumni, building on the knowledge that those alumni have. For example, in my political communication course last quarter, we had a series of experts in alumni and consultants for political campaigns come and speak to my students, which the students report to me they found very valuable. Moving forward, we hope to expand this program by finding additional ways to engage alumni, having more alumni be involved. If you're interested in becoming involved, you can find the link on our website, which has recently been revised, under the alumni tab of that page. Here's the website for those who haven't seen it recently. I'd also point out in the upper right-hand corner, if you'd like to follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn, we have the links easily available there. Right above that is a bright gold button, if you'd like to get involved financially. I raised that gold button in part because this is the year of the UCLA Centennial Campaign. You might be aware that UCLA started off as a branch campus of another university that became nameless, but has distinguished itself greatly over the years. We have been delighted with UCLA's impact on the world, and we think that this campaign is an opportunity to support the university and an opportunity for our alumni especially to become more involved with our campus. This is a period where technological and social changes happen so quickly that the world changes in the blink of an eye. And we are feeling that UCLA is a worthy partner if you want to create a lasting legacy in this ever-changing world. 100 years of achieving the seemingly impossible and forging new ways forward are yours in building a better tomorrow for you, our students, and the world. And speaking of a lasting legacy, I wanted to again reference our gratitude towards Richard Ross. He has just made a transformative gift to the department in the memory of his son, Tony Ross, designated the Tony Ross Endowed Undergraduate Journalism Internship Award. This endowment will encourage undergraduate students studying in the area of journalism and new media to participate in internship experiences by providing them for financial support for unpaid internships, which are still very common in those fields. Deserving communication studies students will be selected to receive the award in conjunction with their participation in an unpaid internship, including print, broadcast, and new media journalism. Richard is unable to be here tonight, but I've been told he'll be watching the videocast live. So if you could please join me in a round of applause to thank Richard for his generosity. Thank you again. All right. So with that note, I would like to introduce some other generous alumni who have been willing to spend some time on the phone with me and also here tonight on stage discussing and sharing their knowledge with a panel talking about communication in the next 40 years. I'd like to start off by introducing Julia Lamb. Julia is actually one of my former students. Julia is the co-founder and CEO of Enchanted Labs, which is an early travel stage startup. She also doubles as a co-founder of the A3 Foundation, which is a nonprofit supporting Asian American artists in the media, and serves as an advisor for innovation and entrepreneurship at UCLA. I should mention that Julia was actually the inspiration for what has become Startup UCLA on campus. She guest lectured in my class, and then in our discussion afterwards was like, why don't you do this? And we were like, why don't we do that? So it's actually been a tremendously successful program. We interviewed our third class today, and it's been a really helpful thing for the UCLA environment. Julia, prior to joining the startup foray, Julia was an early Facebook employee. What was her employee number?
It was about 200.
200 at Facebook, so early Facebook. She was, let me see, she worked with many high-impact developers, marketing initiatives, including the Facebook Developer Garage program, Facebook Presence, and the F8 Developer Conference. She also worked for Facebook's $10 million Facebook Fund, or FB Fund, helping to choose and mentor over 50 startup teams, including Wildfire, Zemride, which is now Lyft, fuzzy mustaches, TaskRabbit, Samsasource, and Vitana. She holds her BA in communication. Should I tell the year? No, we won't tell you.
What?
Okay. I'll point out, by the way, we were able, if you kind of fudge the math, to have one of our panelists from each of the 4 decades of communication studies. One of the people is getting shorted a little bit, but I won't let you guess which one. So, okay, next is Andrew Lincheski.
Nailed it.
Yeah, there we go. He was giving me trouble earlier. So he is the creator and co-executive producer of the new USA Network original series Royal Pains, now available on Netflix.
Yes.
I've been looking.
Thanks for the plug.
Sure. No? I'm plugging Netflix, technically. That's okay.
I'll take it.
Okay. By the way, I have to point out, this is like 6-point type. I just printer. And I'm getting old. Okay, so if I stumble, I apologize. Okay. So Lincheski was the chief curator of the Lincheski Archives, one of Hollywood's biggest private collections of unsold scripts. He survived years of profound unemployment with the endless support of his loving family. He proudly graduated from the Communication Studies Department at UCLA. Lincheski will make his feature film debut in 2010. That's future tense.
I'd go with a larger font next time.
Okay, this is all trouble. And again, this is a good time for me to be reading this. So, matrimonial comedy, The Big Question, helmed by 30 Rock Emmy nominee Michael Engler. He's also has writing credits on the award-winning NBC show UC Undercover. Okay, and again, no year of graduation, but we'll just
Appreciate it.
Okay, that's fine. Ron Pitts is a former Green Bay Packers and Buffalo Bill defensive back, and is a sports announcer, host, and producer. As a Fox Sports NFL broadcaster, Ron has covered the Super Bowl. As a member of Pat Summerall and John Madden's legendary broadcast team, covered the NCAA Final Four, and served as a game analyst for college football on ABC Sports. He's also hosted Under the Helmet and Discovery's Destroyed in Seconds, which, God help me, I love that show. So anyway, among others. Pitts graduated from UCLA in 1985 with a degree in communication and is married to communication studies alumna Babette Perry. Appreciate the year.
I would love some residuals from that show.
But, they were destroyed in seconds. It's unfortunate. Okay. Judy Johnson is the CMO of Caruso Affiliated. Caruso Affiliated is one of the largest privately held real estate companies in the U.S. You might be familiar with the Grove and some of their other properties. They're moving to Pacific Palisades, right? Yeah, the whole thing. Americana. All right. So after 17 years with Golan Harris, leading a global full-service communications firm, More recently, she served as president of operations west of its Chicago headquarters, managing staff, senior client accounts, business development, and operations for offices in Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Francisco. She also served on the company's global management team and helped lead a number of company-wide initiatives, including serving as G4 transformation team, which is in the forefront of the PR industry's evolution in integrated marketing. While at Golan Harris, Johnson defined and managed award-winning 360-degree brand campaigns across paid, earned, owned, and shared channels. Some of her most prominent clients included Amazon, Cold Stone Creamery, Cunard Line, Disney, Disneyland and Downtown Disney, Farmer John, Forest City Development, Las Vegas Sands Corporation, McDonald's, Ritz-Carlton, and Toyota, among others. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our panelists to the stage, and we'll begin the panel.
I'm nervous to go on these chairs.
So I've been told that anytime there's a lull, I'm supposed to say, "What do you think, Judy?"
And I immediately say, no, I defer to you.
That's right. Okay. Well, I wanted to start off by having the panelists tell us a little bit about your field, a little bit about how it related to what you studied at UCLA. Would you like to start, Judy?
Sure. Well, obviously, I was a communications major. That's why we're all here. But back then, because I guess I'm the oldest one here.
We don't have to stress that.
Yeah, well, you know. So, but definitely not the era of the 70s. So, but there were really two tracks. One was interpersonal communication at that time, and the other was mass. And I opted to go for mass because I knew I wanted to either go into advertising, marketing, or public relations, which I ended up doing a little bit of all of those. So the question was really like, what kind of helped me get where I'm going? I think that what I would say about UCLA as a place for education is that it teaches you to be an analytical thinker, teaches you to be a great writer, and just I think an overall general good communicator. And I think that as a mother now of two young children, I tell them all the time, in school I didn't necessarily learn that it's about really good interpersonal skills and, young school, elementary school, and being able to have a conversation with people and to persuade people, whether that's with a debate with your spouse or whether it's trying to get something in the workplace or sell a product or service. And so I do think that a lot of that I learned here. The major was and still is very theoretical, and so much of the practical application of what I do I had to learn on the job. But I do think the tenets of learning to be a problem solver, deadline-oriented, and an analytical thinker really began here.
Okay, Ron?
Communications major, obviously. 85, so I'm 1 year after you, Judy. Yeah. And, for me, I chose the road of mass communication, obviously becoming a broadcaster and that whole deal. But interpersonal communication was huge for me, especially understanding how people communicate, that model. And as Judy mentioned, it was very theoretical, but that theory did come into play for me, especially things like understanding nonverbal communication with people. In my job, I have to interview a lot of players, a lot of coaches, a lot of people who don't necessarily want to talk. And you've got to find a way to get them to talk. And out of that, I think I understood that, number one, information is power. That's one of the first things I learned from some of my core communication classes. Information is power, and you've got to have the information in order to get anything out of that conversation. So that helped me tremendously in my career, and it still helps me right now. I've kind of transitioned from the sports side, still doing some sports, but more into the entertainment side of media. And I think even more so there, because now it's like you got to know who just got popped for the DUI and who's sleeping with who and yada, yada, yada. So no matter how you spin it, the information being powerful is always the key.
I'm a TV writer-producer, which is being an artist and a CEO at the same time, so there are a number of different ways in which you can burn yourself out and lose your mind very slowly. And I went into comm studies for one very simple reason, which is I got rejected by the film school. Which at the time I didn't feel so good about, but in retrospect is the best thing that ever could have happened to me. And they tell beginning artists, writers, directors, actors in my field that when they're just trying to break in, you don't hire an agency, you hire an agent. And people looking for legal counsel are told you don't hire a law firm, you hire a lawyer. And similarly, what I took away from UCLA was not as much from the department as it was from the professors. So Professor Rosenthal I took legal communication with, and it taught me about the law from a communications perspective. And Professor Malmuth I took pornography communication. That class didn't quite live up to its billing, but it was illuminating nonetheless. And no one more so than Marty Gregory. To me, she always has been the program, and I can't imagine it without her. The two classes that I remember most were Speech 1, Introduction to Communication, which on the surface was about making a case based on a particular hypothesis, but really it was about storytelling and connecting with an audience, which served me immeasurably as a writer. And the other one was Com 185, the internship class, which really gave me a huge head start in the marketplace. Marty came in on the first day and said, today I'm going to teach you guys how to answer a telephone. And everybody rolled their eyes. And unfortunately, a lot of us learned the hard way our first week in a new job how important it is to be able to answer a telephone correctly. So to this day, the things I learned in those classes really helped shape the career.
The answer, hoy hoy?
Hoy hoy?
Yes.
Oh, how to answer the telephone?
I'm sorry.
Marty, how do you answer a telephone?
I don't know.
So much for leading by example. I'll tell a quick story about that. So one of my fellow classmates, he went to work after we graduated for a really big producer, and he had no idea how to answer a telephone. So his first week on the job, he answered the phone and he said, such and such's office, and the guy said, hi, can you tell her it's Bob calling? And he said, I'm sorry, she's not in, but I'll have her call you back. So the boss came back in, and he said, Bob called, and she said, Bob who? He said, I don't know, I figured you would know what Bob it was. So she had a very tall stack of scripts on her desk, and she picked up the thickest one and started smacking him over the head with it. So he goes back out to the desk, and about 20 minutes later, the phone rings again, and he answers and says, such and such's office. And the guy says, hi, can you tell her it's Dustin calling? And my friend started to cringe. He's like, I can't believe I'm going to have to do this, but I'm sorry, Dustin who? And she heard from her office him saying Dustin who, so she came out with an even thicker script and started So, valuable lesson.
Dustin. Okay. So, and Julia?
So I'm Julia, and I'm in technology. So I guess I like to think of technology as using software and hardware to create more efficiency and more value. It's kind of like a really broad term, but I mean, of course, we're all familiar with technology from your Googles and your Facebooks and your LinkedIn, and I think we all use our mobile devices on day in, day out. So comm studies to me, I was also mass communications, yay. And I worked for Facebook for 4.5 years, from when it was pretty small, about 200 people, to about 2,500 people is when I ended up leaving. And so, I mean, there are now over 1 billion users, and they're worldwide. And so I think for me, comm studies really helped me think through how different people receive different messages and how you can put different things out there for them. Again, as we were getting more global users, I mean, it started as a Facebook, Facebook was specifically for college campuses, right? So it started as a medium basically for college students to communicate with each other. And as we grew, every time we'd grow, we'd have to kind of change the message. And so, I mean, if you think of really early Facebook times, it was pretty clown town is probably the best way to describe it. It was just a bunch of, it was a bunch of 18-year-olds that were going through their networks, and finally for the first time being able to connect with the people around them. I mean, being able to see who was in this room and being able to know what kind of interests that they had. So I think there is a lot of just trying to understand the different cultural needs. I think also just being in kind of an environment where you're trying to build things so quickly, there's a lot of room for miscommunication. And so I think comm studies really helped me kind of understand how to persuade people in very different ways. You use the foot in the door technique a lot, where you're like, hey, can I get you to sign up for this little thing? And then it's like, oh, could you help me with this other thing? But I think that those were two really helpful things that helped me out there.
Okay. You've actually given a little bit of an idea of how Facebook changed while you were there. It was the Facebook when you started there.
It was the Facebook. I don't know if it was the Facebook when I started there. It was the Facebook when I signed up. I was a sophomore. I think I was a sophomore in college, and I was avoiding finals, and that's why I signed up for Facebook originally. And I joined shortly after college, so it just kind of.
There was a class back in the day where I actually assigned students to sign up for the Facebook back in the day, but that wasn't one that you were in. So.
I was actually. So the two classes that helped me the most in my career and kind of prepare were actually Tim Grohling's classes, which is probably why I'm here. I'm actually here to tell you how great he is as the chair of his department.
Students, so yeah.
But yeah, bravo. This is why I get invited back, right? But one of the classes I took with him was called Computer-Mediated Communications. And I don't know, can I see a show of hands of anyone who might have taken that? All right, so we got a few. And it was a very interactive class. And so at the time we were studying things like, Blogger and Zynga and Usenet and looking at micropayments with iTunes. And I think what was so interesting and cool about that class was how connectable it was. It was something that you were doing all the time in your own life, and then you were doing it in class. And looking at, I think one of the assignments was actually to look at how many cookies internet providers put on your computer, and it's a lot. You guys should check that out. But just kind of getting a feeling of how this industry was quickly developing.
So, Andrew, how has your industry changed since you started it?
Well, how many people here went to the movies last weekend?
2 weekends ago.
How many people here binge watched at least one episode of a TV show they love this weekend? Yeah. So that's pretty much how the industry.
Okay, very nice. Okay, Ron.
When I first started broadcasting NFL games for Fox, it was '94, and they used to send us all of our information, our statistical information, through the mail. So we'd get this packet, and literally it was a box of stats, okay? Because it was either that way or they faxed it. And when your fax machine burned out, okay, then they had to go back to mailing it. And I just remember about 6 years after that, all of a sudden someone said email. And it was amazing because I could get all of that in an email. And when that happened, everything changed. I could now take my computer on the plane. I didn't need my paperboy satchel to get on the plane, and it looked like I was going through a paper drive when I got off, and there were papers everywhere. And it just streamlined everything. The information was cleaner, it was faster. It changed how we did games. We were now more efficient. We could get the information faster. I think that's the key. The information download from wherever you want to call it, the cloud or whatever, it was now immediate. So when something happened in Chicago, by the time I got on the plane in LA, I knew about it, not once I got to Chicago. And that's 3 hours, and we know 3 hours in today's world, that's an eternity. Like we say, make news, not history. I think that's been the biggest change.
Are you saying technology helped you?
Slightly, yeah.
Okay. And Judy, we've talked about this, but I'm sort of curious how you would describe the changes in your industry.
Yeah, well, technology for sure. So we made an inside joke for the older two of us in the green room before coming out here that in our era, the big thing coming was Professor Cole talking about cable was coming. So we were going to have more than just less than this many stations. But really, technology has, as we all know, transformed everything. And as a head of an agency or now a CMO, really how people get information, how they live their lives, how they transact, how they share, what they trust. All of that has completely changed due to technology, and many businesses have gone out of business because of technology. But if you look at the way we were all originally taught, it really was the brand had the control, and they were able to communicate what they wanted through a very limited number of channels. And you could reach everybody, probably about 90% of the country, by being on 3 networks at the same time in the morning. And we all know with the splintering and proliferation of media, it's extraordinarily difficult to get a percentage of that with a lot of buy. And so, and then with time shifting with technology and people getting it on demand when they want it, how they want it, on the device that they want it, the commercial isn't really relevant anymore. So how do you stand out and resonate as a company or a brand or an individual, depending upon who's being served, in a way that makes sense for today with how people get and share information, and trust information has changed as well. So I really say that is the biggest change. And so therefore you look at most media outlets today from a print perspective, and many of them are in bankruptcy. Many of them that were beloved are gone. And when we talk about where we will be in 40 years, I think we'll have another conversation about that.
Yeah, well, that's actually the next thing I was going to ask about, is where you see the next big thing in your industry and where you see the industry going in 40 years from now. You want to, as long as you're hot, keep rolling?
Because you're looking at me.
Okay.
Yeah,
What do you think, Judy?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. I think a big part of it is data. You know, you carry a cell phone, and everything you do is tracked. And Google has lots of information, and so does Apple. And that information is moving to a broader group of folks who find that information interesting, and probably at some point will be selling that information. You used to market to the masses, and then it became very much narrow casting, but now it's all customized. I mean, there's no reason, whether it's, advertising on the internet, but really, it's custom messages. And we all hear a lot about, when I was in college, we all talked about 1984, so Orwellian, but the reality is we are in 1984 in 2014 because we have that data, and it will be used in very different ways, I think, than it is today. Some of them powerful and some of them probably pretty negative.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about the startups we saw today, but yeah. Anyway, Ron?
Remote access. That's another big thing. I keep going back to my broadcasting NFL games and things of that sort. But the broadcaster in a location, on location, will soon disappear. It's already happening. The broadcasters will be in a booth in LA, even though the game is being played in New York. 20 years ago, I remember saying to one of my directors, the late Sandy Grossman, who only had like 6, 7, 8, 9 Emmys, I said, Sandy, I think one day we're not even going to go to the game. He said, no, the technology, it's not there yet. 3 years after that, he said, remember that idea you had about the broadcasters not even going to the game site? He said, that's here, and that will be the future. That's one big thing I see coming at light speed. And when the networks figure it out financially, that they can save on that bottom line, then it's a done deal.
It's like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart's foreign correspondents.
Pushing in that direction.
Okay. So Andrew, other than binge watching and watching more things on Netflix, again, Royal Pains available on Netflix.
I'm really liking you today, Tim.
Okay. I'm sucking up. It's okay.
I'll play the contrarian mainly because I like to be a pain in the ass. I think nothing is changing. And if you're interested in, is this PG? You didn't give us that heads up. Okay.
He gave us permission to use a dirty word now and then.
That's what he's asking.
I was dipping my toe in the water. I thought ass was a nice way to
swear,
kind of
yeah.
get my feet wet. I think nothing's changing if you're interested in doing what I do for a living. It's still about great storytelling, it's about characters, it's about engaging people emotionally, and it's about holding their interest. I mean, people aren't talking about Netflix because it's a cool name or it's an interesting technology or because they had those nice little red envelopes. They're talking about it because they're putting out fantastic programming. House of Cards is a great show, and that's why people are talking about Netflix. Amazon is the biggest retailer on the planet. They don't have the buzz as an original programmer that Netflix has right now because they haven't found their breakout show yet. They will. It's just a matter of time. But I think that kind of speaks to where things are headed, which is content finally becoming king, and people of the 18 to 34 generation don't turn on the TV and flip through 2, 3, 4, 5 till they find their show, and they don't tune into NBC to see what's on NBC. They say, okay, what I want to watch is Blacklist, and that's their distributor and that's their brand, and they go onto iTunes or they go into Netflix and they say, let me watch the Blacklist. So
I'm sort of, just to follow up,
Yeah.
I'm curious, I mean, we mentioned the binge watching and such. Does it worry you that in the entertainment industry that you are competing not just against the best programming of today or your current competitors, but all of this back catalog of outstanding shows that people are getting exposed to or can watch in one setting? I mean, does that make you nervous?
don't I look nervous?
Okay.
That's why I want you to keep plugging the show.
Okay.
There are a lot of options out there, and trying to break through the clutter is more challenging than it's ever been before. But the upside is if you do find something that breaks through, the rewards are really promising. It's changed the nature of storytelling slightly in the sense that the difference between procedurals and serialized shows, or that procedurals are the medical shows, the legal shows, the cop shows, where there's a story that's closed-ended that begins and ends within each episode every week, and that's been the bread and butter of TV since the dawn of its existence, and that's becoming a very, very troubled model because those shows become inherently repetitive and thus boring when you're watching them 8 at a time. So that's why most of the shows you're seeing right now are these serialized shows with these long arc, open-ended mythologies, like Homeland and Masters of Sex, and so that's a way in which I think the storytelling actually has been shaped by the technology. Is you have to figure out a way to make sure that at the end of your episode, you're giving people not just a satisfying conclusion to the story they've just watched for 43 minutes, but a very compelling reason to come back next week.
So they've gotten rid of the reset button.
Right, and I was just going to add to that, and something you mentioned, Judy. Nothing ever really goes away now. You can find it anywhere. And so if you've got something out there that you're really not proud of, you may see it again.
For the next 40 years.
Right, right, exactly. And I recall back to something that Professor Cole, Jeffrey Cole, said in I believe it was Communications 101, an introductory communications class. He mentioned, if you have any amount of money that you're thinking about investing, if you get to that point, think about cable television, satellite television. He said there is going to be 1,000 channels. And I just kind of said, okay, how much time's left in class? And I'll be darned, we've got 1,000 channels, kind of, Andrew, like you're saying, whether it's Netflix, on demand, whatever the deal is, we've got that kind of pervasive communication out there when it comes to television, movies, whatever your form of entertainment.
Right, but I mean, also with just mobile devices, I mean, everyone has several mobile devices on them. I mean, the other day I had a laptop and an iPad and then my iPhone on top of it, and that was just like me going to work as in every day. And I saw this report today by Mary Meeker, who does a lot of reports on like mobile devices, and she said that the mobile addicts, I think, access an application 150 times now per day. So that's like 6 or 7 times an hour if you never slept. That's a lot, right? And I mean, that number has grown tremendously in the last year. I think it's more than doubled. So I mean, more and more people are being more connected with each other. I mean, things don't go away. My boyfriend has a device that takes pictures every 30 seconds. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of unflattering photos of me in this world now. And this is just the way that things are going. I mean, you've got Google Glass. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to check that out, but you can take photos and videos everywhere. So it's a very interesting world that we live in now, where you're not necessarily focused on kind of curating your life in a certain way that you used to be able to. I think Judy was talking about this earlier, where you have to just be comfortable with yourself and that being out there everywhere, and people being able to access memories from 10 years ago. And I mean, the children that are growing up today, they're going to be able to see their whole life documented. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, we've had the discussions in 151 and other classes about once something is on the internet, it's on the internet.
It's on the internet. It's on the internet.
Forever.
There isn't a reset button.
But I think one of the things about technology, and certainly with mobile, is that how you come into experience a brand. So, as a brand marketer, you look at what is the brand experience, what is the brand essence, how it's articulated, how it looks, how you speak about it, and then brand protection. And on the brand, feel, if you are a company, take any company, Nestle. Okay, that experience would be the products, that would be how it advertises, that would be, if you called somebody at a call center, it would be all possible touch points. And, if you walk into a mall today, for example, and you get the mobile app and it's not, they don't have one, you can't figure out where the directory is, and you go to a website and it's not mobile optimized, you get angry, and maybe some of the older folks in the room don't, but young people today, because you may not even know what I'm talking about.
Really angry.
But they get really
I'm angry right now.
And so a brand has to be every digital touch point, as good as the brick and mortar touch point, as well as the hard, packaged touch point, because people get really frustrated if they can't get everything they want when they want it in the way that they want it at that particular moment. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I think the thing that's the most interesting about technology and how that's changing is actually how everything is so instant, right? I mean, you look at your teenagers right now and they have like instant communication, right? You text people. I mean, I text my mom, you know, they text you back. It's just like this world where you don't have to wait, you don't have patience anymore. My cousin has like a 4-year-old and they watch It's a Small World on YouTube, like on an iPad, and then they went to Disney World and they were like, why can't I just go again? And they're like, you have to stand in line. They're like, I don't understand. Can I just push play again? And it's like this video of them going through like It's a Small World. So it's very interesting. So I mean, you have like this digital instant communication, but you also have like now, especially San Francisco. I like to call San Francisco like what the future could be. And I'm from San Francisco. I just flew up here down here for this. And so you have like instant delivery of everything that you can possibly imagine. So for example, like Amazon Prime, like can I get a show of hands who has Amazon Prime? So it's like pretty good, right? That was revolutionary. So when it came out, you're like, wow, I can get anything on the internet delivered in 2 days. Now that is way too slow. You know, man, I cannot wait 2 days. And like every once in a while I go to like a retailer and they're like, this is like 2 weeks from now. And I'm like, 2 weeks? 2 weeks, I'll like have completely forgotten I bought this. You know, it's like Christmas all over again. You're like, wow, it's here. What did I get? You know, but now there's like Google Shopping Express where I wake up in the morning and I go, hey, I'm out of paper towels. And I get on my phone and I order paper towels. And 4 hours later, some dude shows up at my house with like paper towels. And I'm like, thanks, dude. And, you know, I go on my merry way. And now I have paper towels. And this is how I get everything delivered. I don't even know what the inside of a store looks like anymore, right? And you've got like Postmates, which they, for places that don't deliver, they'll send a dude to go there and go pick it up for you, and you pay them some amount of money. So you can be like, you know, there's this boutique shop that I really like this stuff. Can I go get that? Actually, I think they're specifically for restaurants. But there's this restaurant that I really like, and the guy will go there and get it for you and bring it to wherever you are. So you have this really uninterrupted life in the sense of you can kind of do whatever you want, and all this stuff is kind of taken care for you.
Now, does the dude
Yes.
actually get it himself, or does he have an app where he gets somebody else?
That's the future. I thought that's next. Yeah, right.
But what I want to see, and is probably a study already being done, is what is the generation that is truly a digital native who lives seamlessly on and offline every moment of the day, doing way more than 6 apps. They're going from their computer, they're texting, they're watching TV, they're updating their profiles, whatever they're doing. Like, what 40 years from now, for doing that for 40 years, are they going to be like?
Well,
Because
we won't
it's
talk
got to
it.
have an impact. We won't talk to each
We
other.
won't talk. You know,
Right.
if you've got teenagers in your house,
They don't
it's
talk.
impossible to talk to your kids.
Just text
now.
them, they'll get it.
Because here's what it is. It's this.
There's a lot of
Nonstop.
multitasking that's going on.
Well,
so I
right.
think technology makes everything more efficient, which is amazing. But at the same time, then you have way too many things going on at the same time that you're managing. So you might be sitting here in a meeting, but really you're like chatting and like trying to figure out what your plans are for the weekend, and then you're like looking up something for your next meeting. So there's like this way that you kind of, it's kind of like you see everything. You're like here, but you see everything around you at the same time.
I'll just point out,
It's like China.
both based on my teenage children and actual scholarly study, people are not quite as good at managing the multiple screen sessions as they think they are. And sometimes exams point that out as well. So, no, I feel bad in my lecture sometimes when I'm talking to students on the laptop, and I feel like I'm competing against the entire stockpile of human culture with my little lecture, and it's sometimes a little difficult, but oh well. Well, what makes you? I know.
Don't worry, they're listening.
That's
They're
why I
just-
invited Julia.
They're listening. They're doing other things.
That's right. But they're ordering food from the
Right.
company.
I mean, it's great. It's great. They'll come deliver it. You just heat it up.
I guess I should have
cook
a rule.
anymore.
If you're going to order food from the dude, order one for everyone in the class. So, okay, so what is the change you see coming down the pike that you're optimistic about? What is a hopeful change in technology or your field that you see coming?
Will change. So I think technology is so interesting because, I mean, literally if you blink, you're just outdated, you're obsolete. Like I wake up every morning and I read tech news because there's always something coming down the pipe. I think the most interesting part is actually the platforms. So when I was at Facebook, I worked on the platform team, and so the way I describe platform is that's any sort of social integration that's on Facebook that is not developed by Facebook. So that's your games on Facebook, any other applications. So anything that is not developed by Facebook, or that's any time that you interact with Facebook that's across the web. So you could go to CNN and you could like log into Facebook, right? Or you could go and like push the like button or something like that. So any sort of social integration like that. And that the platform team revolutionized Facebook as a company. Like before, when it was just a site, like we call it like in Chrome, it was like not that interesting. It was a destination site that people went to sometimes. But now it's everywhere, right? You bring your friends with you everywhere. Everything is personalized. And so every time a new platform comes up, that's a real amazing opportunity. So we saw it with, Apple and the iPhone, right? Like you have applications that you can do everything. I think right before this, you were telling me about an application where it was for blind people. You can take a photo of someone and the application will describe what that photo looks like. So they'll be like, this is a girl with a green dress. And it's amazing. It's life-changing.
Totally stole my story.
I'm sorry. Hey, I thought I was the person about digital innovation here.
I'm going to have to pay someone $10 to bring me an answer now.
My bad. So yeah, you just get these really amazing platforms. And so every time there's a new platform, it is like the wild, wild west. And no one really knows how to use it. You're like, we have this new technology. And so I mentioned Google Glass earlier. That's a new platform. It's going to be crazy interesting to see how people use it, because now you have this wearable technology all the time that has photos and videos, and you can do other things. So how are developers going to use that? Facebook recently bought Oculus Rift, which is a virtual reality platform. I haven't used it myself, but it's, can you imagine like another world, right? And so how are people going to build applications on top of that? And so I think anytime there's a new platform, and I think those are two that are very, very interesting, but I couldn't tell you which other ones will be developed in the future. That's where there's like the real opportunity for real change.
I want to follow with Andrew since you took his story.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Right, I got
not
backups.
really, not
Oh, you
really.
got
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
I think it's kind of what we've already touched on. The buzzed about phrase now in my business is TV everywhere, which means you'll be able to watch 13 episodes, if that's a full season of your favorite show, day and date, when it's released, on any device, anywhere in the world, at any time, immediately. And that's great, and that's going to generate a lot of viewership, and it's going to get people invested in shows immediately, and it's going to eliminate some of the risk of people kind of eroding away from shows because their attention and time is being competed for, and there's a lot of value to that. And at the same time, patience is becoming a scarce virtue. And does anybody know what the biggest show on television is? No. I bet you he knows.
Football.
Sunday Night Football is the biggest show on television. And it's great to watch people, tackle each other, and football is a thrilling sport, but there's also huge value in making people wait a week for something and only being able to watch it live and not knowing the outcome until it's actually over. So I think it's this double-edged sword that's going to continue to benefit people on both sides of the spectrum. But it's a huge advantage to be able to be involved with live event programming that all the technology in the world isn't going to change.
And what that is just a form of reality television.
Yeah.
Like you said, the unscripted event, live television, I don't think that will ever be replaced. What I see coming down the pipe is more interactive components to television. The fans will get involved now. You will now be able to very soon pull up the replay that you want to see, not the replay that the network wants you to see. You will be able to, once the NFL figures out how to monetize this, you'll be able to say, hey, I want this play called. And they will have a drawing, and they'll pick out of 100,000 entries, they'll pick 5 plays, and they'll pick one of those plays. So the viewer, the fan, whatever you want to call it, will be more involved in the process itself. And I just, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, and this is more of a social question, there is more of this and more remote access, and everything is new media and the email, and we talk to each other without seeing each other and really knowing each other. And have you noticed how hard it is sometimes to talk to a person face to face? It's easier to talk to them. People, I call them email heroes. Boy, they say all kind of things on the email. But then when you get in front of them, it's like, are you the same person I was talking to? So I just looking forward, I wonder socially.
Hey, I'm in technology. I understand.
Yeah, right. I just wonder if, are we getting further and further apart from each other when all of this technology is supposed to bring us together?
I wonder if there'll be some implosion or some kickback at some point where just people will say too much. And when we were asked the question, what is it going to look like in 40 years? Well, besides our jokes that we probably won't be alive in
Well, I won't
40
be
years
here.
to be here, you know, we talk about today as it's a bit of the Jetsons. You know, when I was a kid, you watched the Jetsons, and we've somewhat, besides the little flying ships, we've gotten there. And I think what's scary is when you look at things like Google Glass and other products that are definitely the wearables of the today, what is the future? Is it embedded? You know, your phone's ringing, hello, you're getting a message, you're getting your communications in any channel, any format you want. It's on you, it's in you. It's a scary thing, but we talk about that all the time. You know, because technology has become so pervasive. What's the next step?
Is
In
this
you?
supposed to be
Well, I
the
think what's-
optimistic section?
Right. Well, what I think is really
Some
interesting
people
is
might find
actually,
We're
that
being
really
technically
amazing.
optimistic.
what I think is really interesting is actually how identity has changed on the internet. So if you think about like the internet, like a very long time ago, it was this anonymous beast, right? You had like, you're like, I am Fire Girl 13567, and then you just like lied about your name and your age and location, right? And then it kind of went through this cycle where, you know, Facebook was actually very prevalent in pushing this. We're like, no, like Facebook's about your real identity, and we'd shut down people if they weren't putting their real identity up. So if they, you know, decided to go by even some nickname, a lot of times we're like, nope, can't do it. So we like really push people to have their real identities there. So I mean, that added an enormous amount of value in many ways, because now you can authenticate across the web with your real identity, and Facebook has done a really good job making sure that that is actually who you are. But now you're seeing things like, you know, like people are kind of rebelling the other way. So now you've got like Snapchat coming up, where you take a photo and it explodes as soon as you like take your finger off of the photo, and you have like things like Secret and Whisper, which are kind of like anonymous. I call it like anonymous TMZ for regular people, is kind of the best way to describe it. It's just where people just like put up all sorts of random stuff like very anonymously, and even platforms like Quora. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, where it's question and answer, like really great question and answers. If you haven't checked that out, I would definitely check that out. But they have the ability to write things anonymously too, because they do a lot of questions around, you know, like, what does it feel to murder someone? And the person who's murdering it is definitely not like, yay, please send me to jail. But you get some really interesting insights from that as well. So it kind of this idea of identity has just kind of gone full circle from the internet being just anonymous to begin with, kind of coming to who you actually are and actually trying to just go back the other way.
Well, I wanted to wrap up with the final question, which is based on what you've seen and also what we've been talking about tonight. What advice would you give to comm studies students or future students to help prepare for this future in your field?
Can I start?
You can. I'm looking
All
at
right,
you.
I'm starting.
I can do Judy by default.
I mean, for comm studies students, I would say you are the future. You have unlimited opportunity to make whatever impact you want. If you find a problem that you think is a problem for more than yourself, then go solve it. Solve it any way you want. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I work in a travel technology startup, and I'm solving a problem that I have seen. So if you're curious, you can sign up for Enchanted Labs. We haven't launched yet, but I mean, it's really like the onus is really on you. To do whatever you want. I would say, stay up to date, again, with the newest platforms and the newest devices, I think is really helpful too, because I think that'll open a lot of doors. But it's like you can do anything. So that's my advice.
That's hopeful.
I'll be hopeful. I'd say two things. One is just kind of riffing off of what Julia said. I totally agree. I think we sit around and speculate and prognosticate a lot about what the future is going to bring, and I think that encourages people to kind of guess and chase the trend. And I think that it's better to go in one of two directions, which is to either decide what the future is and define it yourself proactively, or to do something that is viable independent of where the technology goes. So storytelling. I mean, if you want to be a writer of content, it's always going to matter. Storytelling is always going to be about those fundamentals that I mentioned earlier. So there's kind of like, it's recession-proof, as you might say, to technology. And the other thing I'd say is be original. One of the things that's happened to the TV business that's not as great, despite it being in another golden age, is that it's kind of what I call the franchisization of TV, and I probably shouldn't make up words in a comm studies gathering, but it's what you're seeing with sequels and remakes for years now, and movies are starting to happen in TV. And I find when I read about one of these announcements of a show they're remaking or bringing back, I always have one of two reactions. One is like, why would you remake The Odd Couple? Like, you got it perfectly right the first time. I don't understand Or it's like, and the show shall remain nameless, but why would you remake something that was crap the first time around? And some of these shows find traction, whether it's because of nostalgia or whether it's because of the networks just using millions of marketing dollars to ram the show down your throat. But the shows that people are talking about, the shows that are winning Emmys, the shows that kind of bring people to the TV in the first place, are the shows that you've never seen before. It is it is Walking Dead, it is Homeland, it is Breaking Bad, it is The Wire. So I think it's important to break new ground.
Oh, I'll point out House of Cards was a remake. So.
It was an adaptation of a British show, so it was new to the American audience. Careful,
should-
Tim,
you
who
should
you're
have known
arguing with.
better.
I'd like to, yeah. Like, and we won't even talk about Battlestar Galactica, but I'm just putting that down there.
Oh.
So, anyway, moving forward, Ron?
I think listen to your professors. Listen.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I know that seems like, okay, whatever, but I can remember Dr. Rosenthal saying communication law is going to be big one day. I don't even think we knew what communication really was, but now I look at what it's become, and it is huge in all facets. My wife is an agent, and she works in that business, so that's big. And patience. I think everyone, the technology wants us to get, like you said, Julia, get everything now. Get it now, send it now, make it happen right now. I think in haste you miss a lot of things. And there's going to be so many things out there. There's going to be enough to go around, believe me. It's like Marty Gregory told me when I went into the office for the third time, because I didn't get into the communications major until late. She said, you just be patient and keep applying. And I did. So I would say those things right there will be important.
And what do you think, Judy?
Yeah. Well, because it's Thursday and we spent so much time talking about technology, and on most social media sites for brands, there's a thing called Throwback Thursday. So I'm going to go to a flash to the past for a bit and say that there is nothing old-fashioned at all about the art of great storytelling, no matter what you're in, whether it's TV, whether it's the news, whether it's public relations, whether it's marketing, any type of communications whatsoever, because if you don't have a story that people want to hear, they don't really want to listen. And I think that there is nothing, again, lost in excellent oral communication. It's an excellent written communications. And with all the technology we've talked about, I have hired thousands of people, and I can honestly say I've hired probably 5 really great writers, and probably a couple dozen really great oral communicators. And those are skills that will prevail forever. And I think 2 things we learn in school that will never go away as a communicator is truly understand your audience. And the audience is getting splintered and splintered and splintered. And when I started, it was like, we're marketing to moms, or we're communicating to school teachers, or whatever it was. But now it's like, what kind of moms? Yoga moms, stay-home moms, executive moms, gay moms. God knows, there are 90,000 kinds of moms. And they're all awesome moms, so you got to learn how to talk to them in a way that works for them. And then it goes back to a true tenet again. What's your message? You got to be consistent with your audience and resonate. You got to have a consistent message that makes sense across all the ways you want to communicate, whether it's a story you're telling on TV, a film, or a marketing a brand. So those are some basics that don't go away. The nuance that I'll add that's new, though, is in the world in which I was educated, it was an era of generalism. You got into a communications field and you did a whole lot of everything. And that really is not possible to be good at everything anymore. And the beauty in that, though, is there are a lot of really unique jobs, whether it's the visual arts for communications, or whether it's the written word, or it's the digital aspect. I mean, you can pick what you really love and you're good at and be a specialist and go all the way up to the senior ranks of an EVP in that specialism, as opposed to before, if you didn't do it all, you couldn't get ahead. So pick your passion, because work shouldn't be work, it should be love.
Okay, well, speaking of love, I love this panel. Thank you guys very much. And
Can
if you
I
guys,
say one more thing?
oh no.
No, I promise it'll be family friendly. I just want to tell you how starstruck I am that Tyus Edney is in the audience.
Yeah,
back there.
I am as well. Yeah.
Well, on that note, if everyone would like to go out to the lobby again for a reception, I'd love to see you all there. So, thank you again.
Yeah.
Nice job,
But we
baby.
survived the panel